Steve Bowers welcoming you to Capitol Talk, a different format as we work with the Chamber of Commerce here in this city, the Chamber in Jackson, Tennessee. Capitol Talk is when we feature our legislative representatives, and usually it's state-based with State Senator Ed Jackson, State Representative Johnny Shaw, and State Representative Chris Todd. They were in Nashville until the early hours this morning working on the state budget, which has been approved, a bare-bones budget. The legislature will suspend its session until June and go back contemplating a few more weeks of work and a lot to be done. But in essence, a kind of a continuing operation budget for the state of Tennessee, with the modification that the revenue projections are being changed, and no one knows really where we're headed with revenue collections in Tennessee. We are sales tax driven in this state, and business taxes, but state sales taxes account for about half of our revenue. And so it's a kind of an uncertain situation for the state, but the budget has been approved and that will continue, and that's what they're constitutionally mandated to do. But all of that to say they're not with us this day. And we're glad to have Congressman David Kustoff. He is from the 8th District in Tennessee, and it's good to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And appreciate you taking time.
Yes, sir.
We've had some questions submitted in advance, and we will get into those. I guess the question for everyone right now, and I know it is busy up there, I can't imagine what the schedule is like in Senate and House or at work. Where do we stand on all of this today?
Well, as we know right now, the Senate yesterday unveiled a bill. It's the third round of coronavirus funding.
Okay.
You roll back the clock. As we all know, just a few weeks ago, everything was fine.
Yeah, we were talking about it 9 days ago. The World Health Organization declares a pandemic, and then we watched Italy and watched the shift from, I guess, Asia into Europe and Spain and all these other places, and it's like, wow, as you say. And we went from 250 gatherings to 50 to no more than 10, and so it's a changed world.
It is, Steve. So I think, to me, it's easier to break it up into two different segments, okay. Health and the economy, and obviously they're interrelated. We know from a health perspective that we've been told that we're dealing with a pandemic as it relates to the coronavirus, and I've been very impressed with our health officials, both at the federal level and the state level. I've been in constant contact with them. At the federal level, and we've seen the president and the vice president lead daily briefings. The vice president is technically in charge of the task force. I've been very impressed personally with the interaction that I've had with the vice president and with other officials like Dr. Fauci and Dr. Scott Gottlieb, who's the former commissioner of the FDA. I've also been in contact with Dr. Lisa Piercy, who of course is the state commissioner of health. She's been terrific on the front lines here in the state. And the main thing is, and I think the big takeaway is, that we all need to do what our health experts are telling us to do, which is keeping the social distancing, of course maintaining proper hygiene, the hand washing, hand sanitizing, and certainly being careful of our environment. But as we've had to follow those directions and those instructions, the economy's taken a tremendous toll. I mean, we've seen that with businesses, with business closings, with our restaurants. Frankly, it doesn't matter what size business, small, medium, and large, everybody's been affected. And so the question is, what needs to be done and what needs to be done really now? And so in the past couple of weeks in the House of Representatives, we voted on 2 prior rounds of funding to address the coronavirus crisis. First, really dealing with health, appropriating money to make sure that the agencies are properly funded.
Okay.
The second round, to make sure that the test kits are available, and also that when people get tested, they can get tested for free, no cost to them, and providing some protection for those workers who are affected by the coronavirus. But we've seen, obviously, over the last couple of weeks, and certainly, Steve, with the financial markets as they've been reacting, that there needs to be some stimulus for the economy to make sure that these businesses can rebound and survive and prosper, just like they were doing just a few weeks ago.
So part of it is keep the government in operation, part of it is take care of the health needs, and then the other part will be the business. I want to get into that. One of the questions, and it's a whole series of questions, and you have heard this, that we have exaggerated this early, right, that we've created a panic where we should not have, that we're shutting down businesses prematurely, that this is much less incidents, confirmed incidents than flu. You know, so many people die every day. Somebody dies in this country every 12 seconds. And so people, you've seen the health side of it. How do you react to that? Because I know you're hearing the same thing from some of your constituents.
Well, you're exactly right. I do hear that. And, you know, just a little while ago, I was listening to a program on Fox News, and they were talking about a family who had gathered together for a dinner in New Jersey, mother and her children, and 4 members of that family, after the dinner party, apparently supposedly contracted the coronavirus. They died.
They've died, yeah. And 2 others in that family are seriously ill right now.
Yeah. So, you know, where I come down on that is, number one, I do think we've got to listen to our health experts. Okay. I put a lot of stock into what Dr. Fauci, who is our infectious disease expert at the federal level, has been saying, and I think a lot of people are familiar with Dr. Fauci now. He's become a TV star in his own right, but he's been around since President Reagan, with AIDS and SARS and Ebola. He's seen it all, and my impression is he's not somebody that is overreactionary, and he's not somebody who's going to sugarcoat it. He's down the middle. Okay. He's pretty blunt. He says it's a concern. The other thing is, we really don't know, because the tests haven't been done, because the testing kits until right about now have not been available, who has the virus and who doesn't.
Why is that the case? And that's one of the questions that has been raised.
Yeah, part of it is the test itself was not perfect and was not perfected. So what our federal folks have done is they've now lined up the test manufacturers with the LabCorps and the Quest diagnostic to be able for your healthcare professional to do the test, send it to the lab and get it done. So I think we're on track and had to ramp up pretty quick. And again, to quote Dr. Fauci, in the United States, we didn't know about the coronavirus until about December 31. Okay. Started in China. The Chinese, as you know, they don't disclose things like we do.
Well, they arrested a couple of doctors for which they have apologized today, I noticed.
They certainly did. Yeah. But to go back to your question, you know, here's the bottom line. We want to be like South Korea that got in front of this issue very quickly, did the proper testing. We don't want to be like Italy. We don't want to have the thousands and thousands of deaths that they have in Italy. And the other thing about the coronavirus, and I think that we all have to understand, is it's not necessarily going to go away. You know, with the flu, for example, it escalates during the cold months, and then it goes away during the warm months. What Dr. Fauci and other health experts say is this may taper off as we get to the summer, but then it'll come back. And so we need to really get in front of it, get a hold of it, and I think that we're on the right track to do that.
Does he feel like that we will be dealing with this ad infinitum, or that it will be out here a year or two, or what's his feeling?
At least for the next 18 months to 2 years.
2 years, okay. All right. And it can, I guess, as other viruses, it can alter itself, and so we got some challenges.
That's right. And so, you know, then, you know, when you look at how you treat, really 2 things, or 3 things: the testing to determine whether somebody's got the coronavirus, the vaccine, and then the medication to treat. So we've talked about the test kits. The vaccine is at least 12 to 18 months away. Okay. Wow. So they've done a trial. They're into another trial.
There is some discussion about some vaccines that are out here for Ebola and other things that may work here, and so that's
part of the, you know, that's
that
part
may
of
be part of the thing and part of the hope, because I hear about that there may be something else out here that will work in some cases, right?
That's part of the equation. But the third part is, if somebody does have the coronavirus, then how do you treat it? What's the most effective way to treat? And I've been in a number of briefings in Washington, again, with our experts. One thing that I'm very encouraged about is that the drug manufacturers, they're working together. They're working in tandem to try to address this. And what they're doing is they're taking existing medications, existing drugs, working to reformulate them, and in other words, to treat the coronavirus. And so I think that solution, if you will be here sooner than the vaccine. But the vaccine, we're 12 to 18 months away.
Okay. We're visiting with Congressman David Kustoff. He's graciously agreed to be with us for this special edition of Capitol Talk with the Chamber here in Jackson. Medically, since we've started tracking numbers, we've been doubling our known infection cases about every 3 days. We were at 6,200, I think it was Tuesday. Today it's 13,900. If that continues, then we will double to 28,000, say by Monday. And then 3 days later, it would be close to 60,000. And when you do that, then you're to 120, then you're to 240, then you're to 500,000, to 1 million. Within a short amount of time, the governor of California is saying he thinks that 50% of the people in that state will be infected over the next 8 weeks. Do you agree with that kind of projection, or on what is it based, or is it too early to tell? I guess the more testing we do, the more we'll know. We're kind of in an unknown here.
Well, the more testing, now, one positive thing is a lot of people are paying attention to what's being recommended. Gatherings of no more than 10 people, as the CDC says. But I'll take it back and dial it back to Washington. So in Washington, you've got 435 congressmen. There have been 2, as of right now, who've tested positive for the coronavirus. And you've got...
Have you been tested? Everybody in Congress tested?
I haven't been tested because
no symptoms. Okay.
I haven't displayed any symptoms, and the experts say don't get tested unless you've got the symptoms. And fortunately, I haven't. But you've got probably 10 to 12 members of Congress, congressmen and senators, who are in quarantine. Okay.
The reason I ask, I guess, if you've been in contact with any of them or whatever, do they say, well, we need to test everybody here, or what are the parameters now that we have?
That's a factor, but also, do you display any symptoms?
Okay.
And I haven't. Now, obviously, there are 435 congressmen. When you're on the floor with other congressmen on the floor of the House, you come into contact with them. I'm talking to people and interacting with people every day. And not only congressmen, but certainly constituents and other members of the public. So we just need to be careful and cautious. We don't need a shutdown, though. Okay. I don't need to stop meeting with constituents. I don't need to stop taking meetings, but we need to be careful in the way we do
I guess that
things.
becomes the question of the balance. The governor of California has basically issued a stay-at-home directive, or shelter-in-place, as they're calling it, which we had in the Bay Area. And then, which we'll get into the business aspect. In essence, that shuts down the entire state. And he's saying that we're expecting this infection rate over the next 8 weeks, because we haven't been given an exit date for any of this. We've closed bars in this city and nightclubs in this city. We are a eat-out city. I mean, Jackson, Tennessee is dependent to a great extent on our social and entertainment industry. I think when we had the group that came in to survey our city after the 2003 tornadoes, they said they had never seen a eat-out percentage equal to Jackson, Tennessee per capita, because people come here from all over. It's a big part of our community. We're just a step away from closing restaurants. We're in the situation now, so there's an economic effect out there. But when you hear this kind of thing, then based on what you know, do you go, okay, this is a reason thing, California ought to shut down, or is there part of you that says, Governor, I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure that you're going to see 50% infection rate in the state of California. I don't know what data they're looking at and what you're seeing.
I don't know if it's overkill or not.
Okay.
And I don't know what's happening in California. I'm paying particular attention to what's going on in West Tennessee, and we haven't seen that, obviously.
Yeah, we're just now beginning our first case. I think 4 Shelby, and of course this will date this, and Fayette County, Dyer County, and Carroll County. We're beginning to get our first reports of confirmed cases here.
Right, and so we need to be conscious. But you talk about being an eat-out city,
right.
and you're right. So what concerns me, and you know, we're seeing this with restaurants, we're seeing it with hotels, we're seeing it with airlines, as people stop going to restaurants because they've got to, or what have you. They stop going to hotels, they stop going to airlines. You wonder, and let's just take the restaurants, for example, if a restaurant has to close and they don't have any cash flow, how long can they in fact survive?
Right.
We don't want to see businesses close. We don't want to see restaurants close. And so as I go back to Washington, probably this weekend or early next week, to consider what the Senate is looking at now and what they may vote on. The question is, what type of relief in terms of loans do we give to these businesses and to these small businesses so that they can reopen or they can continue their operations? And also, what about the employees? What about these employees who are affected?
So where do we go from here? And I guess that is the thing. I mean, the Restaurant Association, the American Hospitality, and all that said that we would need $145 billion. I don't know where the figures come from. Boeing, obviously, airlines, we got myriad problems there, hotels, but it permeates everything. We're also beginning to get industrial shutdowns just out of concern, not wanting to have an environment that spreads this virus. And we don't have the testing out there, so we're kind of flying into the unknown. But what is being considered that you consider that's realistic or that you could support in these circumstances?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. You know, with the airlines, you're seeing planes fly with few people.
Good time to buy a ticket, I understand.
Well,
if you want to fly,
you can buy them cheap. Delta Airlines announced they were cutting global capacity 70%, wow. 70% of their flights. Obviously, that will affect their employees. There are hotels that have occupancy rates in single digits, and some hotels you're seeing they're literally closing in certain cities because they don't have the people staying in the hotels. They can't afford to pay their labor.
And I guess the other concern is, and you don't know how long this lasts. So what's Congress looking to put together? What's the Senate talking about? What's the House talking about?
Right. So yesterday, on Thursday, the Senate unveiled a bill. I'm still going through the bill. The price tag right now, this is an amazing number, Steve.
Okay.
It's $1 trillion.
Okay.
It's $1 trillion.
And last time I heard, we were already running $1 trillion deficit, right?
Well, and you know, to take it about 5 steps further,
okay.
if we vote for that, if that gets enacted, if it gets passed into law, it's going to take a heck of a long time to pay it off. It's going to take generations to pay off that money.
Okay.
But you got to look at it and you say, well, if in this bill we're talking about loans for the airlines, loans for other distressed industries, $300 billion in loans for small businesses with employees less than 500, and other provisions. What's the alternative if we don't do it? What happens if there is no stimulus that's passed by Congress and signed into law by the president? What happens to the economy, and what happens to businesses?
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of listening. I'm two things. I'm listening to constituents in West Tennessee because I need to hear from them. Right. Secondly, where's the president? What is his position? What about the Treasury Secretary? What about the Secretary of Commerce? What do they recommend? And so, as you know, with legislation, it's like sausage.
Right.
It's getting made. It's not very pretty right now. And as we talk now, the things that I've read about in the bill, I'm sure are going to change later today and tomorrow. I think, though, that in the Senate, there's going to be a vote on something, either this weekend or early next week. Okay. And then whatever they pass, it'll go to the House of Representatives, and it'll be for me to consider.
Is there a independent corresponding work going on in the House, or is the House waiting to see what the Senate does and then react to that?
Yeah, there's input. Good question. There's input both from senators and from members of the House of
okay,
Representatives.
into the content.
Right, but the Senate, they'll vote first on this.
Okay, so they will vote. Your reaction, if that we're hearing discussion about just direct checks to people in America, maybe if you make less than 100,000 a year, a family with 100, and I don't know what those figures float, but is that was kind of a campaign thing. Like I said, we're all sounding like Democrats or socialists to a certain extent now, because it's looking, as you say, you can't let this economy collapse, because everything ends if it does. And I'm older than you are. I remember Lee Iacocca and all this other stuff with Chrysler. We've done these kind of things before, right?
Yeah. And, Chrysler's a great example. A lot of debate about whether the government should have stepped in. Right. With Chrysler, the government did step in. Chrysler became a stronger company. The government made some money, right or wrong. But
when you look back at your political philosophy, I think it was just like in 2008. The entire banking financial system is going under. Mr. President, we have to step in. Right. And it's not something that we Republicans are comfortable doing. And I heard the president today, or yesterday it was, if we bail out companies or loan, should we take an equity position in those companies? And the president said yes. Which is not a typical Republican thing. We don't like government owning stakes in the business, but in these extraordinary circumstances. So I guess we're headed. All of that stuff, is it comfortable for you when you hear this, or the flags go up, or?
No. But I asked for the job, and these are tough decisions. You talked about 2008, and that's interesting. First of all, in 2008 was the fault of somebody and some people.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
What we're experiencing now, and as everything has just escalated, it's nobody's fault. No company, no individual is responsible for what is happening to the economy. It's nobody's fault. But the issue is if the Treasury Secretary says, if we fail to do anything as a federal government, then the economy is going to go off a cliff, then you may have your answer.
Okay.
On the direct payments that you asked about, I think that's a very good question. And that's one thing I've been on the phones and meeting with people over the last couple of days as that talk has come out, trying to get people's opinions on that. As we sit here now, the proposal is to give these payments that you just talked about to individuals making less than blank, $75,000,
Okay.
married couple at a certain level. And so, I've had some people say to me, either I'm not in favor of it, I am in favor of it. Is there a way to do it for people only who have lost their jobs? Okay. And which is a really good question. And my guess is, and I don't know this, but my guess is if I asked Secretary Mnuchin that question, and I do want an answer to that question, he might say, we, the federal government, we don't have enough time to determine whether somebody's lost their job, and it may be that right now they haven't lost their job, but in a week or 2 weeks they have.
They have, I mean, that's hanging in the balance right now.
Right. This morning, there was an estimate from Goldman Sachs that unemployment claims next week could be over 2 million claims. Okay. That's an amazing number. I mean, just a few weeks ago, we were celebrating the really low unemployment numbers.
And huge job growth, right?
And huge job growth. So we've got to really carefully consider this. We've got to consider what's the final package, what happens if we do pass it, and what are the effects, if any, if we fail to do anything.
Okay. And looking at the unknown, I guess I want to get back to that. In this process, not that it ever happens on either side, but sometimes when you get bills of this magnitude, people start attaching riders to those bills that come up with to which people are philosophically diametrically opposed. And it happens, seen it happen in my lifetime on both sides, depending on who's in the majority. Is any of that happening out there? Are you seeing any signs of that? Could that complicate this process?
Well, the short answer is, at this point, no.
No.
But but you're right, it happens, and it happens a lot. And so, from my perspective, when it's time for me to to vote. And I'll give you an example. On the second round of coronavirus funding, just to set it up in real time,
Okay.
we knew last week on Thursday that we would be voting on this package, but didn't have a bill, didn't have any text, had nothing, just we were going to vote. Well, we ended up not getting a bill and we didn't vote on Thursday. Friday, at lunchtime, I get on my desk in Washington a bill that's 105 or 110 pages long. Okay, start going through it. 7 o'clock that night, I'm at my desk, I get a revised bill. Okay, and I'm going through trying to figure out what's different. Getting, even though it was a Friday night, some reaction from constituents, and I'm saying, look, I'm literally reading the provision that you're talking about right now in the bill, and you've got a good point. And not making this up, 11:45 p.m., I get the final bill. Okay.
All right.
And a few minutes later, the buzzer goes off and it's time to vote. So, you know,
All right. So what do you do in that?
This is happening in real time.
Okay.
Well, you know,
May I ask a couple of questions?
Yes.
Who's putting the bill together? Who's doing the new drafts?
right.
Where does that come? Does that come from the speaker and from
You know,
committees, or?
It depends on the bill.
Okay.
On that particular one, it was a combination of Nancy Pelosi, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, and other people from the administration.
So everybody had some say-so in this. Okay.
They did.
So it's not just it wasn't just a Democrat bill. It was input from the administration.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
And so Secretary Mnuchin had probably talked with Nancy Pelosi 20 times that day. And then right before the final bill came out, we heard from the president. He issued a statement and he issued a tweet. And he said, I strongly encourage everybody to vote for this bill. We need it.
Okay.
And so it is certainly not pretty. And I'm just being very candid with you. That's the way it was.
Works. Okay.
That's the way it was done. So when you ask me, what else could be attached? At this point, it doesn't look like it, but you know we're probably a couple of 3-4 days away from the Senate voting on whatever they're going to vote on, and it's going to change from what it is right now.
What happened to that bill?
It passed. It passed with pretty strong bipartisan support, both Republicans and Democrats. The Senate passed it on Wednesday, and the president signed it Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening.
So that's kind of that was
So
that
it's
kind
law.
of first. So that was kind of the first step.
Actually, it was the second step.
Second step.
Yes.
Okay, the one that had to do with medical supplies and other things.
That's right. That was-
Congressman Kustoff had. This is, by the way, Capitol Talk. If you're just joining us, with Congressman David Kustoff and with the chamber. So the first bill is just keep the government operation, make sure we got that. Then the medical supplies, and so the big one that's waiting now is what are we going to do as far as any kind of economic stimulus?
That's right.
Okay.
And
who will determine that? Who all? Because it's interesting to hear that the administration and the Senate and House leadership are apparently in communication.
Right. You know, it is a combination of the president, Secretary Mnuchin, and other people within the administration. It'll be Mitch McConnell. Mm-hmm. It'll be Chuck Schumer.
Okay.
It'll be Nancy Pelosi. It'll be Kevin McCarthy, and there will be some other congressmen and senators who are in Washington now, probably who are committee chairmen or ranking members of the committee.
What is the communication, and pardon my ignorance on this, what is the communication mechanism for them? I mean,
You know,
they're obviously not in the same room at the same time, but they're representatives of or whatever.
Yeah, you know, they're practicing social spacing.
Okay.
And in fact, they've told us when we go back to vote, they're probably going to extend the voting time so that we're not all
In
not
the
all
chamber
there
at the same time.
That's
Okay.
exactly right,
okay,
Steve.
wow.
But they're also getting input from me and from other congressmen. I was on a conference call yesterday with all the Republican congressmen talking through this bill. It was just coming out. We were just seeing it for the first time. I'm in touch with Kevin McCarthy's office and other people in the leadership. to give input as it continues to develop. So there's a pretty good communication process, all things considered. But I think if you talk to President Trump, he'd like this done yesterday. He would like something done yesterday to show small business and businesses of all type that the government is there as a backstop if they need it in terms of those loans.
Does it make you more comfortable as a member of the House, being a Republican member of the House and the minority there, that the bill is going to come through a Republican-led, McConnell-led Senate? And if the president says this okay, McConnell says this is okay, unless the House makes dramatic changes, does that make it more comfortable for you, even though it may include elements that you say, under normal circumstances, I wouldn't vote for this, but these are extraordinary times?
Yeah. Mitch McConnell's pretty shrewd. The president has a good pulse. Yeah, he's got a good way to phrase that. He's got a good pulse on it. Right. So, when you get that many people involved, obviously you're going to have a lot of different vantage points. But I like the fact that McConnell is taking the lead along with the president. And you just pointed it out. Just like anything that anybody has to vote on, I don't think it matters whether you're in the Congress or you're in the state legislature or you're on the county commission or city council. There are going to be X number of things in this bill, and the question is, does the good outweigh the bad? Does the good, because when it comes time to vote, again, whether you're a congressman, whether you're a city councilman, an alderman, county commissioner, it's yes or no. It's not yes, but I remove paragraph 2A.
Right.
It's yes or no. You got to take a stand.
Are you comfortable with the direction it's heading? I mean, do you feel like in your heart, talking to constituents and everything else, that something is going to have to be done to protect this economy?
Well, I think we've got to do something. The question is, what is the end result? Yeah. And right now it's too soon to tell, because what I've seen, and it's a 250 plus page bill, it's going to change. And the question is, how much is it going to change? And
what does David Kustoff feel like must be in this bill if we're going to do this?
I think for these small businesses, that they need to know that they've got loan relief that will come their way, and it will come quick, so that they can continue their operations, and so that they can give the security to those employees that they're keeping on the payroll and paying health insurance and other benefits, that they've got the cash flow that they can sustain. You talked about the restaurants in Jackson a moment ago, and you and I and everybody knows that these restaurants, if they don't have their dining area open, if it's strictly takeout and delivery and all that, they're not going to be able to make it for very long. They've got to have people in the restaurant. I want life to look like what it looked like a few weeks ago. I think that economically, we've got to address it, and we've got to address it right now to make sure that this economy that's been so strong for the last 3 years can pick up and can endure.
The reality is the health concerns may make that impossible. I mean, the mayor closed bars and nightclubs in this city yesterday, and says this is a day-to-day situation. I mean, the reality may be that if the test figures start going up, confirmed cases going up, that we have people all across this country saying you can't open. I mean, it's being done in other areas, which then just sets up, that's mortgage payments, that's everything else. Now, there are some of the major banks that are stepping up to say that they will do mortgage relief, in essence, for I don't know how long, 30 days or 60 days. Can you take an economy and just take out 2 or 3 months and reset it?
Well, a few things. One is, one term that we've all been hearing is flatten the curve.
Right.
Okay. So hopefully by doing the things that we're doing, instead of seeing, like you talked about earlier in the show, the dramatic
doubling every 3
rise,
days, right?
Right, that we can tamper that down. Dr. Fauci says it's going to get worse before it gets better, but it doesn't have to get a whole lot worse if we do what we should be doing. But we want we want the economy to be able to function. You know, you hear the stories about people, and I've gone in plenty of grocery stores in the last week and a half to 2 weeks. Who knew that there would be such a run on toilet paper and paper towels? And
have you found any that we can share? Is there a store somewhere that? Yeah.
Actually,
I had a friend that said, "Hey, Dollar General in Jacks Creek," and so here you go,
Yeah.
or Grubb's Grocery downtown. Or something.
Actually, I was talking yesterday to Joey Hayes, who's got groceries all over West Tennessee, and he's got pretty good stock, and his employees, like a lot of these grocery store employees, they're on the front lines. These men and women, they're working really hard. But we need to make sure that we've got the backstop for them, and that we can keep things flowing and keep the economy going.
It is an eerie feeling, or I found it eerie to be grocery shopping with aisles that are full, personnel that are trying to restock shelves as people are pulling things off. Just this unsettled fear that there is. It's quiet. I mean, nobody was fighting over anything or whatever. There was just a lot of people there. Just this kind of, I don't know, that it's different. You know, something has fundamentally changed in addressing that.
You know when Tom and the weather people come on and say there's a chance of snow and there's a rush for the grocery store. Right. Well, now we've seen that for 10 days to 2 weeks now. Life will get back to normal. We're going to get back to normal. I guarantee you, there's plenty of food. There are plenty of supplies, but people need to let the supply chain work. Okay. I will tell you this, though, and I thought about this a month ago and talked to the Fed chairman directly about this. You know, we've seen over the last X number of years so much of the manufacturing move to China, everything. I think we're going to see a permanent change in the supply chain. Not everything, obviously, but a number of things away from China and to other countries like the United States. And, you know, you were talking about people and their mortgage payments and their rent. I've got to tell you, I've been on the phone with a number of banks in West Tennessee the last several days. I've got to tell you, these banks, if people run into hardship, for the most part, they're going to work with their customers, and to me that's very reassuring.
So many things. Congressman David Kustoff is with us. This is Capitol Talk, a special edition with the Chamber because of the extraordinary circumstances. We appreciate this opportunity to talk with him. There are other things going on. I would like to talk about some of those, but one thing you had mentioned that you're going into it. You get a bill and you get an update at 7 o'clock, and then you're going into 11:45 and you get another update. That there are constituent reactions. How are people communicating with you? I've never thought about sending you a text at 11:30 at night or what. Is that how this happens, or how do people communicate with a congressman nowadays?
Just like they communicate with you. They pick up the phone, they email, they text. If they don't think they can get to me, they'll get to Ed Jackson, my district director. They'll get to somebody else on staff to get a message to me. And I guarantee you, if somebody gives a message to Ed Jackson or anybody else, or Debbie or anybody else in the district, it gets to me pretty quickly, and I evaluate everything. Because in the end, when I vote on a bill like I just talked to you about, that I get at 11:45 at night, and I cast a vote at 12:30 a.m. in the morning, really, I'm thinking about three things. One, how do people at home want me to vote? Obviously, I'm not going to vote the way everybody wants me to vote, but how the majority of people, if they were here in the chambers on the floor of the House of Representatives, how would they want me to vote? Secondly, what's in the best interest of the United States of America? And then three, what, if anything, does the Constitution have to say about the vote that I'm going to take? And I feel like every vote that I've taken, all those things have lined up and they've all married up. Now, most of the time, I don't have a situation like the one I just described to you. I've got some time to read through the bill, consider it, give the right amount of thought to it, and cast the vote. That was a quick one, and that was a quick one. When the Senate does whatever they're likely to do in the next 2, 3, 4 days, I'll have some time to obviously to read through the finished product, get comments, and do the right thing.
Okay, so you expect there will be some time, even though there's going to be tremendous pressure to get something done.
Yeah.
If the president comes out and tweets and says, "Hey, I support this," is that enough for you, or
it's a factor?
Factor. Okay.
I mean, I want to know what Steve Bowers thinks about the bill. I want to know what Jack Smith thinks about the bill, what Jane Jones thinks about the bill, what Donald Trump thinks about the bill. I want as much input as I can get.
What have you been hearing most in this crisis? Have you been hearing the health concern or the business concern, or
both?
Okay.
Both, and kind of what you opened the show up with. Some people wonder whether this is
overreacting,
whether this is overblown, and
your feeling is fundamentally it's.
Well, I tell you what my feeling is we're past that point.
Okay.
I mean, that was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. We are where we are. We don't look backwards. We've got to deal with what we've got to deal with. It's like playing poker. You play the hand that you're dealt, and you can't worry about what the hand was two and three rounds ago.
So the feeling is, as we do this by the middle of next week, there'll be something you feel
very
like
well
passed.
likely could be. So just so you know, what as a congressman, what I've been told, I told you I voted Saturday morning at 12:30 a.m. I took the first plane that I could to get out of Washington and come back home. By the way, that plane was just about full. But I know that's not the case now. But that plane was almost full. We were told you go back home. We were actually supposed to go to Washington starting on Monday. Told don't report on Monday, but we give you 24 hours notice to get to Washington for a possible vote. And so we'll do that. And again, once the Senate votes, and I've gotten the first version of the bill. I know it's going to change. I'm going through the first version. I'm going to go through however many versions and amendments there are, and then I'll have enough time between when the Senate passes it and it's time for me to vote to really give the right consideration to it.
Okay. Congressman David Kustoff is with us. This is Capitol Talk with the Chamber here at E+TV6. You mentioned that already, one thing that's coming is we don't need to be as dependent as we are on other sources of supply for medicines and other things in this country. Do you see, and you mentioned that are we going to see some fundamental change? Are we seeing a change in relationships? I mean, if Nancy Pelosi and the president and the administration are talking to each other, formulating a bill, are we going to see more of this? Is it changing the tone there? Or, of course, we've got an election year still rolling on the other side.
Well, it's been,
I mean, you've been there long enough. You've seen the partisan divide and experienced it directly. Is there any possibility that this can maybe bring us back to our senses and start trying to work together on things?
Well, it could, and certainly for a period of time. I finished 3 years in Washington. I will tell you that the last year plus has been toxic. I don't know any other way to describe it. It's been toxic. The impeachment, which that seems like forever ago, and frankly, in some ways it doesn't. With what we're dealing with, it doesn't seem and all that relevant now. But it caused great divide between Republicans and Democrats, and it was an exercise that I think everybody knew what the result was going to be when it was started. It's actually even started early in the Trump administration with the Mueller investigation. This has created an atmosphere where people are working together. I think everybody wants what's best for the economy. There are some conservative philosophies that I adhere to and that others who are watching the show adhere to, and I know that there are liberal and progressives that others. That's going to be, until this, I thought that was the debate for the election. I still think it is come November, but for this period of time, Steve, whatever this period of time, people are trying to find common ground. How long it lasts, that's a big question mark.
But there is much more cohesive work being done right now on this.
There is, what I'm going to be interested to see, and I told you when I thought there may be a vote, there may not be a vote, is where can we find agreement so that we can get this bill passed, so that we can provide relief for not only small business, but for the employees of really all businesses, because they're all affected.
Okay. This circumstance, produces its own jokes or humor. The one, there's no sports to watch on the weekend. There was a woman in my house who said we were married. I talked to her and kind of like her. In this country, one of the questions that we had is this a time, if travel is going to be less, whatever, that we could initiate work on transportation projects and other things that we've talked about doing? Is this a time that we as a country can take a look at ourselves as far as what we are and who we are and relationships? We're busy. Is there anything positive that can come out of this that you see?
For 3 years since I've been in Washington, one of the main things that I've heard agreement on, Republicans and Democrats, is infrastructure. I mean, the president gave, I thought, a great State of the Union speech just a month and a half ago. Thought he nailed it. And you probably watched it. People who are watching this show watched it or watched part of it. You've seen enough of them where sometimes everybody stands up. Sometimes it's just one party that stands up and claps when the president says whatever the president says. In this one, the president got very few standing ovations from everybody. Even when he recognized the Tuskegee Airman who was there, the 100-year-old, not everybody stood up for that, which is amazing. But when the president talked about infrastructure, everybody stood up and clapped. If you had asked me the same question 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, I would have said the one thing that Republicans and Democrats could find some agreement on is infrastructure. Now, how you pay for it,
right,
that's all. Okay. That's completely different. I still think that's the case, but if the federal government, if we're about to spend close to $1 trillion to save the economy, if you look at infrastructure, what's the pay for? How do you pay for it? That would have been the question regardless of whether we had coronavirus or not. But it is a big question.
Okay. So where we go from here remains to be seen then. We still have troops in Afghanistan. We still have all this other international stuff going on. There are many things happening in this world. The news business, I know you have to have a headline story. Right. You have to have a leader. If something's going on the front page of the paper, no matter how many pages are in the paper, somebody puts this in. So right now...
Do you still read a paper?
I do.
I
still subscribe. We have a young son in our home, and I said, when we pass on, he's going to say, my folks still had a landline, books, and they were getting a newspaper. And what do I do with all this stuff at the estate sale? So I still do. But in that world, because we're going to lead with something, this virus consumes the discussion now. It's not the only thing going on in the world. There are other things out there. And how do you, as a member of Congress, keep up with all that and balance those issues?
Yeah, I read a lot. I talk a lot. Like you, I still read newspapers. I'm reading a tremendous amount each day, not only news, but briefing papers, position papers. This virus, in addition to our economy here, we talked about the things it's going to change. The supply chain out of China. I'm convinced that manufacturing is going to leave China, some manufacturing. Some of it will come to the United States, some will go to Vietnam, some to other Asian countries. But because of the coronavirus, the political environment in China, the tariffs, some of that manufacturing is going to leave China. Iran, the coronavirus has greatly affected Iran and the Iranian people.
And I'm not sure we're getting really accurate data out of there.
We're not getting accurate data out of Iran nor China. Okay. And China just kicked out 3 journalists, American journalists, including one from the Wall Street Journal. we're not getting accurate information. But the way we live and the way we deal with each other is going to change. For the last week or so, you've had people, instead of going into work, they're telecommuting. Does that change? And I don't know the answer, but does that change the way we work? Do our travel habits change? Do we go to the movie theaters like we used to? Or does everybody watch Netflix and Hulu and Amazon? We're going to see a lot of lifestyle changes, some temporary, some permanent, because of this. Nobody's got the answer, but we know things are going to change, and we need to be able to adapt.
Okay. When you go back a few weeks, when they called off March Madness, and I know many people say, well, one thing they're not going to do, they're not going to call that off. We'll play games, or because you got a sports gambling industry, you have many things that are hooked into this. And when they did, some people reacted that were talking to me by saying they must know something is really bad out there that we don't know. Because it just, that if you just said, well, we're not going to have March Madness, we're not going to have Major League Baseball, we're not going to have any of this until, well, when are we? Well, we're not sure. That was the wake-up call that something was totally different in this country.
It is, when you think back, that's just really 8-9 days ago, and it all happened very quickly with the NCAA, the NBA, and then other major sports. It's changed. I think that those leagues and the NCAA made a decision based on the safety of their athletes, and they wanted to go on the side of caution. But when the World Health Organization declares that you've got a pandemic, you've got to take it seriously. I don't know that I don't have the medical knowledge or intuition to know what's right or what's wrong. I've got to rely on the experts. I've got to rely on my doctors. And so I'm consulting every health expert I can. Like I said, the ones in Washington, like Dr. Fauci, Secretary Azar, I put a lot of faith and confidence in. I really put a lot of faith and confidence in Dr. Lisa Piercy, who of course is from Jackson, but now Commissioner of Health for the state. If they tell me something, I think I got to listen to it.
Okay. Other than this virus and the economy and all those myriad of concerns and people's personal lives, just the uncertainty out there, what else has got your attention right now? Is there anything else out in the world that we need to know about?
Steve, again, a week ago, you could have listed a myriad of issues. Right now, it's not only David Kustoff, it's every other senator, it's every other congressman, it's every other state legislator. The number 1, 2, and 3 issue is the coronavirus, making sure that it doesn't spread like it spread in Italy, and making sure that we can preserve the economy, make it healthy again, make it where businesses can continue to operate and people have jobs.
Okay. In the news coverage over the last few weeks, there was an evolution, or whatever it seemed to be, in the responses of the president. News networks camp out on each side, politicalization of this. Let's blame the president for this, and not acting center. Other networks saying the president's doing a superb job. I've been in media for a long time, and in watching it, that seems to be toning down now, that there's kind of a leveling out of, as you say, no matter how we got here, this is where we are, and this is where we need to be. I do find some hope in that. I know that there's an election coming out here, and all those elements are still going to be there, but it does seem to me that the significance and seriousness of the situation is beginning to level this out a bit.
Well, if you watch TV news like you do and I do a lot, you asked me about the issues, that's all they're covering.
That's it.
That's all they're covering. Yeah. And to go back to what you just asked, they should treat the president and the administration that way, because he's done a great job leading over these last couple of weeks. And the briefings that I've been in that have been led by Vice President Pence, he is sharp. And he is a strong leader. He gets it. We've got good health experts, helping to lead and guide the president. So I appreciate President Trump's leadership. I appreciate the vice president's leadership, and we're going to continue to do what's right for the nation.
Okay. Appreciate this time to talk with you. I've been asking all the questions. There's a camera here. If you want to look at that camera, if you got a message for the constituents, the people of the 8th District, I want to give you the time to do that.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, as a nation, we've been through a lot. We've been through, as far as health issues, we've been through yellow fever, we've been through scarlet fever, we've been through AIDS, we've been through 2 world wars, we've been through a Cold War, we've been through a Civil War. We're a strong people. We're a people that when we need to rise up, we rise up as a nation, we rise up as a government. I know it may be tough right now. I know we may be talking to people who have either just lost their job, they're worried about their job, they're worried about their business. In the end, we're going to be okay. The United States of America always prevails. We always come out on top, and we're going to be on top again.
Okay. You didn't have to be in this business. How do you feel about it now?
Well, it's an honor to serve, and these are tough times. And you know, if you can either lead or you can get out of the way. And I think from my perspective, I lead. I try to make the best decisions I can after getting all the information and certainly people's thoughts, their feelings, their commentary, so that I can in fact make the best decisions. But we've got good leaders locally. We've got strong leaders locally. We've got strong leaders at the state level and certainly at the federal level. And it's an honor to serve with them.
Okay. So you don't regret getting into this?
No. It's an honor to do it, and we'll just keep working hard.
Okay. Where do you want to see it go from here then?
We want to do what our health experts say, and that's flatten the curve. Make sure that people are healthy, that they remain healthy by doing the things the experts recommend, by not gathering in large groups, by keeping whatever distance they can from each other, at least 6 feet apart if they can, making sure that they properly wash their hands, which is not difficult, and sanitize, and just make sure that if you have any symptoms, as these test kits become more readily available, if you need to get tested, talk to your doctor, talk to your practitioner, and get tested. If you don't, then don't.
Really appreciate this time.
Thank you so much.
Talk with you. I sure do. One thing I noticed, I've always had a habit of touching my face. You do the thinker pose, and I still do that. But we will learn and adapt.
I think we're all trying to be careful not to do that.
These are extraordinary times. We appreciate this opportunity. Certainly thank Congressman Kustoff for being with us. Once again, this format usually includes our state representative, State Senator Ed Jackson, State Representative Johnny Shaw, State Representative Chris Todd, and they were in Nashville, Tennessee, and the state budget, if you're just joining us, has been passed. It is what they described, the governor's office is describing as kind of a bare bones budget. They are in the process of revising revenue estimates, which is understandable, but they will resume the session coming up. The plans are in June, and so this is in essence kind of a continuing budget, and we'll see what all the details are. But that work has been done. It's what they're constitutionally mandated to do in this state, and so they have done that, and they have done that before the beginning of the next fiscal year. And so we appreciate the work that's being done in Nashville, and we appreciate the access that they provide through Capitol Talk. It is my understanding with the Chamber that when the sessions go back, that there will be future Capitol Talks, and they will be scheduled, and so just be following the Chamber website at jacksontn.com. Once again, Congressman, thank you very much for this time. Thanks to the Chamber for providing this opportunity for the City of Jackson, and we're pleased to be a part of that here at E+ TV6. Continued best, and God bless us all.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.